简直就是大美女啊！给你涂点口红怎么样？哇，好美啊！说话呀，说话呀，说话死哑巴！闭嘴一辈子。
This girl who is bullying others is called Angie, solely because she's the principal's daughter, the school security guard. Upon witnessing the scene, not only fails to intervene but also shoos away the onlooking students before quietly leaving. The girl glued to the wall is named Xiaotong because she can't speak. Angie has glued her mouth shut. By the time Xiaotong's mother, Li Han, arrives, Angie and her 3 companions have already left. Seeing her daughter's pitiful state, Li Han is heartbroken. However, being just a cleaner at the school, faced with such a vast status gap, mother and daughter can only swallow their anger in silence. The next day, the 4 bullies hear about an old castle nearby and agree to explore it together. However, Angie doesn't show up. One girl disappears in the time it takes to smoke a cigarette. When the remaining 2 girls come out to search, they only find a corpse. Terrified, the 2 run away. Another girl runs up to the balcony on the 2nd floor. She doesn't dare look back even once, limping into the forest with her injured leg. The lightning and thunder outside frighten Xiaotong. When she goes to the balcony, she sees her mother's furtive figure. Li Han explains she is picking the kumquats Xiaotong's father has planted, but the box contains no kumquats, only crawling insects. The next day, Li Han brings kumquats to ask the principal to transfer Xiaotong back to her original elite class. Faced with the principal's lecherous gaze, Li Han's attitude suddenly becomes firm.
安琪平常怎么对待小童的，在这里我就不多说了。事情如果没有办法解决的话，我们至少是不是可以回避一下？
The principal, visibly nervous and flustered, agrees to Li Han's request. At this time, the police, responding to a report, come to investigate the castle. After searching for a long time, they only find a string of paper cranes. Hearing a noise from a cabinet, they approach to check, but stumble back in fright. When they turn around, the search yields no results. Detective Dai has no choice but to go to the school to question Xiaotong. Looking at the photos of the girls who bullied her, Xiaotong is terrified. Li Han, who is cleaning windows in the distance, sees this and quickly comes to explain on Xiaotong's behalf.
上星期五，学校组织学生去放船祈福。那天小童身体不太舒服，我就带他先回家了。
等一下，你刚才有说是哪一天吗？嗯？那你为什么回答是星期五那么笃定？
大家都知道，那天祈福之后，就有学生
哎
去
呀，喂，我们只问他好吗？
不会说话。
你要他说话呀，有笔有纸叫他写吗？现在。
Li Han states that Xiaotong is traumatized and that she will take her home first, promising to inform the police if they learn anything new. Angie is also investigated. On the night of the incident, she claims she has fallen into the river while praying and developed a high fever, so she hasn't gone out at all. She even produces a medical record as proof. With this, all of the police's leads are cut off. As Li Han goes upstairs, she sees someone moving in. It is the school's social worker, Lin Zaifu. Although they have seen each other at school, they aren't well acquainted. After a brief exchange, Li Han takes Xiaotong home. With her husband working away from home for years, Li Han manages all household affairs. After repairing the wall, Li Han puts on a raincoat, preparing to pick kumquats. Meanwhile, Angie receives a text message from the missing girls and goes alone to meet them at an abandoned bus. After waiting for a long time with no sign of them, she instead encounters the person in black. While Angie is in danger, her principal father remains oblivious, attending a school anniversary ceremony. When the ceremony begins and Angie still hasn't appeared, he finally calls her, but there is no answer. When it's time to cut the ribbon, the principal has to put down his phone and walk onto the stage. The split celebration ball not only contains celebratory ribbons, but also Angie, tightly wrapped in plastic, her eyes wide open in death. Similarly wrapped is the phone that has gone unanswered. Instantly, everyone scatters in fear, with screams filling the auditorium. Li Han, arriving late, searches through the chaotic crowd, but can't find her daughter. The principal is taken to the police station for questioning. He says students have reported frequently seeing a person in black taking secret photos around the school. Social worker Lin Zifu had experienced a shipwreck years ago. He and his daughter were rescued by teacher Fong from the school. Since then, Lin Zifu has regarded Fong as a senior and mentor. The principal, feeling sorry for him, hired him to work at the school to make a living. However, not long after, Lin Zifu's daughter Hui Jun died in an accident at school. Since then, he shows a strange expression whenever he sees girls of similar age to his daughter. Therefore, the principal suspects that this incident might be related to Lin Zifu. Meanwhile, Li Han, searching everywhere for her daughter, finds her daughter's watch in a sewer below the apartment building. Following scratch marks on the corridor walls upwards, Li Han sees bloodstains on the windowsill of Lin Zifu's home. She suspects Lin Zifu has kidnapped Xiaotong. She immediately rushes home, tears bed sheets to make a rope, ties it around her waist, and opens the window to climb into Lin Zifu's home. But as soon as she moves, her hand is pierced by a screw, causing her to break out in a cold sweat from the pain. However, worried sick about her daughter, she ignores the bleeding, focused solely on finding her daughter's whereabouts. Unaware that Lin Zifu's car has just parked downstairs, she finally climbs into Lin Zifu's home, turns on her flashlight to search around, and discovers a broken hemp rope, which further confirms her suspicions. But just then, fortunately, she hears footsteps outside the door in time and hides under the bed. Lin Zifu is about to change clothes. Just as he's about to discover Li Han, a knock on the door suddenly sounds. Outside is the landlady Sue, who asks Lin Zifu to help deliver some supplies to a charity. Lin Zifu wants to refuse, but can't resist her repeated requests. Li Han also slips out and coincidentally meets Detective Dai, who is investigating the case. She tells him about her daughter's disappearance, hoping he can help find Xiaotong. They check the surveillance footage and happen to see Lin Zifu, who is throwing 2 large black plastic bags into a garbage bin. Coincidentally, a garbage truck passes by the door. Li Han rushes out, climbs onto the garbage truck, and searches for the black plastic bags, but finds nothing but trash inside. Suddenly, she hears a familiar ringtone and looks towards the sound to see a masked person in black. The person seems to notice her gaze and runs away. Li Han and Dai quickly give chase, and the person in black ducks into a narrow alley. Li Han rushes forward and pulls off his mask, only to find she doesn't recognize the person, but Dai looks surprised. After bringing this person back to the police station, everyone discovers that he is the peeping Tom the principal mentioned. Moreover, he is Dai's son, who had a habit of taking secret photos years ago. At that time, Dai's career was on the rise, and to avoid affecting his career, he changed his son's name to Wu Wang to sever their relationship. Opening Wu Wang's videotapes, besides some unspeakable scenes, they also find footage of Xiaotong being kidnapped, confirming Li Han's suspicions. An enraged Li Han rushes to the railing.
你还有看到他什么吗？你还有拍到什么吗？你有看到他去哪里了吗？说话！你看他那个样子，你为什么不报警？你为什么不救我女儿？为什么不救我女儿？为什么不救？
我是在保护你啊。
什么意思？
It turns out that Wu Wang's camera also contains 56 videos of Li Han abusing Xiaotong.
叫你不要去跟别人接触，为什么不听？我是为你好啊，我在保护你，你知不知道？
Although Li Han explains that she was only disciplining her child, Dai still prohibits Li Han from continuing to search for Xiaotong on charges of child abuse. Confined in the interrogation room, Li Han encounters teacher Yang, who has come for investigation. She notices Yang has a key identical to Lin Zifu's. Yang explains.
我们自然会活动室的钥匙，你也很久没回去了。
So she secretly takes this set of keys, hides in Yang's car while the police aren't looking, and then drives away from the police station towards the charity. Meanwhile, when Lin Zifu arrives at the charity by car, he sees the entrance surrounded by police, which frightens him into turning the car around immediately. Su talks with Lin Zifu about his mentor Fang.
方老师啊，真是大公无私，无私无畏，一生都在追求真理哈。
However, Lin Zifu appears particularly cold, seemingly disagreeing with her words.
人可以像石头一样顽强，但真理就像一把榔头，可以砸碎顽石。
Su suddenly receives an urgent phone call.
那是营在附近这次通缉犯，警察幻影那几个是中女学生，和他有关，听到了没有？自己要小心啊！
快了，我马上到了。这胡说八道，这胡言乱语。
After hanging up, Su tries to ease the awkward atmosphere by turning on the radio.
华女中杀人案有重大发现，警方怀疑与共建慈善会的全职社工林在福有关，目前正在全力抓捕。
But this makes things even more awkward, and Lin Zaifu presses the window lock.
你相信真理那把榔头能砸碎完形？
Sue looks at the hammer within reach, too scared to even breathe. On the other side, Li Han successfully reaches the charity home and sees a dog gnawing on something on the ground. After she drives the dog away, she collapses to the ground in shock. Regaining her composure, she quickly digs up the dirt pile, only to find a girl's corpse. Gathering her courage, she opens all the plastic bags to find they contain the 3 girls who disappeared after bullying Xiaotong. Thinking that the also missing Xiaotong might have met the same fate, Li Han frantically digs through all the surrounding dirt piles, but finds no clues. Lin Zaifu drives the car to a small cabin deep in the woods. He tightly ties Sue to the car and walks into the cabin alone with a hammer. This place was supposed to be a cozy home for him and his daughter Hui Jun, but now it has become empty and cold, all because of Angie and her 3 followers. When Hui Jun was alive, she was Xiaotong's classmate and once a close friend, but all the beauty was destroyed that day. The girls tightly fasten a thorny wreath onto Hui Jun's head. Despite Hui Jun's struggles and wails, they continue laughing, not stopping their actions at all. They even use Hui Jun's phone to take celebratory group photos, then cut off Hui Jun's hair, stuff it into a water bottle, and force her to drink it. Finally, Angie punches her in the stomach, forcing her to swallow the dirty water along with her hair. The entire process is recorded on their phones. Seeing Hui Jun crouching in pain, they pick up an injured pigeon, the one she and Xiaotong had been nursing, and throw it around carelessly. Hui Jun is powerless against the 4 of them. She tries to protect the little pigeon, but doesn't dare to snatch it away, looking pitifully cautious. They even threaten Hui Jun to stand on the glass skylight, saying they'll throw the pigeon off the roof if she doesn't comply. Xiaotong, just arriving at the rooftop, sees her good friend covered in blood, while the girls nearby are amused by this. Unable to bear it any longer, Xiaotong pulls scissors from her school bag, ready to fight these bullies. Seeing Hui Jun being tortured mercilessly, Li Han forcibly drags Xiaotong away. She understands that resistance is futile in the face of power. If you can't beat them, you can only choose to avoid them. Watching the last glimmer of hope fade, Hui Jun desperately walks onto the skylight. Xiaotong pleads with her mother to help Hui Jun, and Li Han finally decides to try on her own.
众生之行，引发觉悟之列。
Teacher Fang is shocked speechless by Hui Jun's miserable state, looking up to see Angie and her 3 accomplices, notorious troublemakers whom no one dares to offend. Receiving the phone call, Lin Zaifu is thunderstruck and immediately rushes to the school auditorium, only to be blocked outside by Mr. Fang. By the time this father pushes through the crowd and runs in, his daughter is already on the brink of death.
爸爸在，我在。
Even though loud cries echo through the auditorium, the people outside remain deaf to them. Afterwards, even when Lin Zaifu desperately searches for eyewitnesses, everyone responds with indifference. Undeterred, he stops the principal's car.
监控的录像有消息了。
这边的监控早就坏掉了。
Even his longtime helper and mentor, Fang, now chooses to cover for those in power.
已经发生了的事情就没有办法改变了。赶紧回去吧，你心里还有什么话想说，随时找我。不是方老师，这监控怎么会坏掉吗？你帮我想想办法，方老师。啊！
They try to dissuade a father from investigating his daughter's death with a casual let it go and an insincere for your own good. The killers hide in a safe house. The victim stands in the pouring rain. And the principal, claiming the surveillance cameras malfunctioned, sits calmly in the police chief's office. The police, supposedly bearing the mission of truth and justice, keep saying,
你女儿是自杀的，请你接受现实，别来了好吗？
To Lin Zaifu, everything now seems particularly ironic. It turns out that on the day he was sorting through his daughter's belongings, Lin Lin Zifu saw the video on her phone, yet everyone around who knows truth remains silent, as if Hui Jun's death were just a trivial matter, like accidentally stepping on an ant. But how could a victim's father ignore such tragedies that befell his daughter? Very well, if the law cannot uphold justice, then he will take matters into his own hands. Driven to desperation, Lin Zifu ultimately embarks on this path of revenge.
觉悟的终点，皆是新生的起点。
But even with his hands stained with blood, his daughter's melodious singing voice will never return to his ears. Perhaps Lin Zifu's heart, like this wooden cabin, has long been emptied of everything. So, after judging the perpetrators who hurt his daughter, the hammer of justice, symbolizing truth, is about to swing towards his mentor who concealed the ugly truth.
我女儿回不来了，你为什么不能救救她？她回不来了，你知道吗？她回不来了，我们这么相信你啊！ 你说呀！
我女儿呢？
别管我！
你把我女儿藏在哪里？
再也回不来了。把你女儿埋在花圃里了。
The silence of bystanders is complicity in crime. It turns out Lin Zifu has long known the truth about his daughter's death. When Hui Jun was bullied to death, Li Han was nearby. She witnessed the perpetrators fleeing and even prevented Xiaotong from calling the police. When Hui Jun fell in the auditorium, Teacher Fang also saw the assailants and prevented Lin Zifu from discovering the truth. Their silence, along with the perpetrators, killed Hui Jun, and they too are targets of Lin Zifu's revenge.
把你女儿埋在花圃里了。
Hearing the news of Xiaotong's death, Li Han is devastated. She raises a hammer, wanting Lin Zifu to pay blood for blood, but she's ultimately no match for Lin Zifu.
怎么样？失去女儿的感觉怎么样？
还给我！
While Li Han is unconscious, Lin Zifu escapes, carrying Fang, who took a fatal blow for him. Just as he's about to get in the car, he finds Su missing. Su secretly wakes Li Han, and the two chase Lin Zifu on the highway.
这么多的人都知道，你还没天打你的女儿，你有病，你要去看医生。你没有听见我说话吗？我要上车。
It turns out Su is also a silent killer. 5 years ago, she witnessed Li Han being abused by her husband, but chose to ignore and remain silent, fearing it would affect her house rental. Li Han uses her last bit of strength to open the car door.
小龙在哪里？我也小龙在哪里？把我女儿还给我！
现在和我一样了。
跟你不一样，我只是个妈妈。她藏到哪了？
After saying this, Lin Zifu pushes Li Han out of the car. The police ahead are ready. Seeing Lin Zifu refusing to stop, Dai has no choice but to pull the trigger. The bullet pierces the glass and hits its target, but Lin Zifu doesn't die. The truth he once revered, but now scoffs at saves his life. The police take him home to identify the burial site, but what they dig up are the adult male bones that have long since decomposed. Meanwhile, the police find evidence in his residence. Actually, on the day they searched the castle, the police had already found an important clue. The string of paper cranes, when unfolded, reveals a picture drawn by Xiaotong. The upper half of the picture is filled with kumquats, while the lower half shows her deceased stepfather. It turns out that on that night 5 years ago, Xiaotong was brutally sexually assaulted by her stepfather. An enraged Li Han avenged her daughter with a sickle. She dragged her husband to the rooftop garden and buried him, then cleaned up the blood. To cover it up, she planted kumquats in the garden and changed her daughter's phone contact to husband. For 5 years, every time she gave away kumquats, she would say,
我老公种的。
Indeed, those kumquats were grown from her husband's corpse. Dai keeps asking about Xiaotong's whereabouts, but Lin Zifu only calmly replies,
他自由。
All the accusatory crowds and reporters rush to the rooftop, denouncing Lin Zifu's various evil deeds. Perhaps he has grown accustomed to human nature's dark side over the years. Lin Zifu seems indifferent to this indifference or abuse. It was everyone's silence that allowed the perpetrators' evil deeds, but now these silent people suddenly start condemning loudly. How ridiculous. Only when disaster befalls oneself do people realize how sharp a knife silence can be. This is silent killing, the true meaning of the film's title. At this moment, Lin Zifu also chooses to answer everyone present with silence. He finally escapes the darkness and sees the light.
无论何时何地，
皆为众生，
众生之行，
引发觉悟之恋。
觉悟的终点，皆是新生的起点。
he falls from the building with the final truth. Just as the case seems to be concluded, Wu Wang presents new evidence. It turns out that the source of this series of events is actually Xiaotong, who can't even speak. When she was sexually assaulted years ago, before Li Han arrived, she had already stabbed her stepfather in the neck with scissors. Li Han covered up the crime to protect Xiaotong.
今天的事情，千万不可以告诉任何人。
The phone in Hui Jun's locker was also placed there by Xiaotong, aiming to have Lin Zaifu carry out her revenge plan. The so-called kidnapping was also jointly planned by her and Lin Zaifu. After exchanging glances with Lin Zaifu on the day of the school anniversary, Xiaotong left the auditorium before the principal cut the ribbon, creating the illusion of her disappearance. At this moment, she has already been sent by Lin Zaifu on a car to freedom. She is truly free now. In an avalanche, no snowflake is innocent. The school, police, neighbors, reporters, etc., without exception, are all accomplices in this massacre. There is much injustice in the world. Only blood can deter evil. Justice cannot always be by your side, but evil is always lurking in the corners watching you.